cookie, chocolate chip cookie.
By the way, oh, she's going around.
Saying where the June is.
She's gonna need to burn that last one off.
This might take more than a weekend to read.
Well, yeah, it's, I recommend it for anybody wanting to adopt or do knowledge management, because there's a lot of just very common sense parts and pieces that you can pull out of there and actually use in an organization.
Did you ever teach at Columbus campus?
Should I?
I don't know, you're looking very familiar.
Well, I have one of those faces.
Oh.
No, I can't, I'm not even, I don't even think I've ever been there. Oh, well, maybe we did a conference there. Maybe we did the information architecture and knowledge management at that point, here at Kent had put together some conferences around KM. And I can't recall if it there or if it was some, maybe.
Maybe it was just another person.
Didn't see it in the post office on the wall or anything like that.
I'm pretty sure.
Does anybody even get that? Right?
Yes.
I mean, that was where the FBI most wanted was in the
yeah.
post office on the wall. Back in the old days.
Believe it or not, I think they still do it.
Is that right?
I think it's still there.
Still a thing?
Or post offices.
I know, there are still post offices.
Who goes there?
That's why we sell the post office. Where are we gonna put the federal?
Yeah. You need a
You
federal
don't
office.
have a federal building.
I saw a thing the other day, there are companies that will handwrite letters and hand address envelopes.
Yeah, I just saw that.
Oh
Yeah,
my goodness.
yeah, it's a service.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Is there a way we could maybe turn that down, maybe a year or two, or is it adjustable, or does it?
I don't think it is adjustable, unfortunately.
Right.
Because we tried, they had the same issue, only up in the other room.
Yeah, right, yeah. Yeah. No problem.
All right, well, I've gone ahead and started you, so I'm gonna, I mean, it's just
Couple
your,
minutes, or?
yeah, I would say until she comes back, and then you probably get to know. Oh,
Cookie
there she
runner.
is, woo!
Just giving a bite to each one of them.
All right. Is it 1:30?
127.
All right. Any questions? I just want to stay punctual because we're actually on time versus the morning parts. Any questions we can talk about before I get started?
What is knowledge management?
Well, it's fun and exciting.
I was gonna ask that.
We're going to go through some definitions of what it is for specific organizations. But basically, it's harnessing your technology, the people, and the processes to execute their knowledge better. So it's not information management, it's not data management, but it's all of that. Yes?
What do you see as the biggest threat and competitor for knowledge management?
Humans. I mean, because it's really a discipline, right? You just can't buy a software that does knowledge management. You have to involve the culture. So culture adoption and adaption is probably the biggest, because it's not easy. To get those kind of behaviors built in and baked in, that's not just an IT process, that it's a behavior and the human interface, the human in the HR job description. You will, share information, you will, those sorts of things. I think that's probably the hardest one. I don't think there's really an enemy, because it's a cultural thing that you're gonna need leadership, structure, a design, and a plan of execution. Doesn't always mean you need a $3 million IT rollout.
So if there's a life cycle for KM, from the emerging to the end, what do you think knowledge management should?
I don't, you know, knowledge management has had a couple of different slices of that model of beginning and end, and it just doesn't chime with me because it's a continuum. It's an elevation of behavior of an organization, so I don't really see it as you're either going to start to adopt it or you won't. You're either going to start doing it or you won't, and you're going to do it better or you won't. I don't know if that answered your question, but I don't really see it as a start finish.
That makes sense.
You know, it's just it's a state of the current org. I don't think you'll just ever get to the plateau and say, oh, we're done. I don't think that works that way. I
Because
mean,
it's not an industry.
say again?
Because it's not an industry.
Yeah, it's more of a mindset of any organization. I mean, British Petroleum was one of the early adopters of KM 34 years ago. So, but the term and the idea has been around since Drucker. And I think he coined the term knowledge worker in about 58 or something like that. So, I mean, the concepts have been floating around about where this is going. So,
Knowledge is hard.
yeah, what's knowledge, right?
You know, as opposed to like emotions and memories and customs.
Yeah, now you're getting the philosophical concepts and, you know, this isn't the
So you
same.
think you know something, but you really don't. So knowledge is just attitude or something.
Yep. A lot of intangibles are not touchy, you know, they're kind of more touchy-feely in the definition. And that's why we're going to go through a couple of different definitions here to show that. All right, I'm Edwin K. Morris. I'm your host for the next couple of hours. Thank you very much. I do knowledge management. I've been teaching knowledge management here at Kent. Kent has the distinction of being the first college to offer a Master's of Science in Information Architecture and Knowledge Management in the U.S. 100% online. And that program is now about 12 years old. So that's the only reason I'm here, because I was working military intelligence in Southern Arizona for the U.S. Army, doing knowledge management, and I was so emblazoned by the concept of knowledge management that I looked for a college to give me an opportunity to earn a master's degree, and hence I found that. Please use the hashtag #ArtOfKM. That's our primary for Pioneer Knowledge Services, which is the emblem under the I Heart KM, which leads me to this organization. I'm so passionate about knowledge management and the potential it has to help society, I created the nation's first knowledge management nonprofit. We are a knowledge management charity built to help organizations, nonprofits specifically, Health and Human Services, help them build knowledge management capacities in their organizations and to help spread and educate knowledge management to the general public. That's our mission. We're about 5 years old. We're a philanthropic organization, so we work for hire, and we always seek donations and grants. All my contact information is there. Please like us on Facebook, tweet us. If you could at least get a couple of people to take some images for me today, it always helps for me to translate what I do to my board. I would appreciate it. And this is our mission. We inspire cultures that value knowledge. So if you can let that kind of sift through as we go through these next few slides, because we're going to do a quiz. I know. Question number 1, and I want you to write these down for me because we're going to discuss them. What primary communications method does your organization use? This will end up being a working concept here as we go through the end of this.
Can I ask for clarification?
Yes.
Communication between what roles?
So whatever your organization does, what's the primary means of comms do they communicate within the organization? Do they use memos? Do they use telegraphs? Do they use smoke signals, text, that sort of thing? Okay, question number 1. Question number 2, what is your organization's policy for how it communicates. So the first question was about the what. Second one is how, what's the organizational direction that's policy or enterprise level that everybody follows? Because everybody follows policy. And if they got more than one, great. Maybe it falls under HR. Maybe it falls under IT. Maybe you don't have one. Maybe you should have. Question number 3, how does your organization train the workforce in your communications methods and policies? Very good questions. And most organizations probably, I would say probably 70% of the population of most organizations will be able to answer this question. How does your org train? That includes the onboarding process. How do you associate a new person into your culture? How do you reinforce it over time? How do you keep those skills up and current? And the last one, what would an effective and communicative knowledge organization / culture look like? This is really where we're going with this whole flow today, is to get your brain pan working towards a possibility of what could be. Maybe you're not going to run home and apply it immediately on Monday, but at least it'll plant some seeds that may germinate over time. So, that's 4 questions. I want to go back to question number 1. What are some of our answers here on, what are the primary comms? What's the primary? People using CB radio? What's going on? How's your organization communicate?
We've got a ton, so
Okay.
we may use WebEx,
Okay,
we may just use email, we may use Slack.
okay, so what drives the what if, which slice to pick?
WebEx is usually distributed, and if we need to have presentations, if we need to share visual materials, we'll go to WebEx. If it's real-time, intra-team communication, we'll probably go Slack. And then if we need to just have general discourse without any sort of time constraints attached to it, we should go email, or if we need a paper trail to keep track of discussion.
So are all of those instruments corporate sponsored?
Yes.
Email is probably the primary. We have an intranet, and that's used as a sort of a broadcast from above downward.
Okay.
Skype for people that you know informally. And then we have some shared sites that are just repositories for information.
So it's a one-way, the knowledge goes one way. Just
Yes.
storage archive.
I mean, you can work on these documents while they're on these shared sites.
Okay, all right.
So I
So
would
still
say
active
collaboration.
collaboration, okay.
Yeah. But email is primary, and you would never correspond with, say, a business partner that was not on your team.
Okay, in email. Is that an audit thing? Or a trail?
No, that's certainly part of what we care about, but it's more of a, it's just so.
Okay,
Email primarily,
email.
largely because if you have the time to communicate something, but you don't know if the recipient has time to right at that moment be interrupted, I guess.
So the email is at least that one shot over.
Yeah,
get to
we
it.
email people who are sitting like in front of it.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. All right.
Email primarily, if it's emergency, we'll call the
Okay.
phone. And,
She's the first telephone out of the,
there's more than one way.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Great.
and also we use, Google Drive, Dropbox, the cloud.
Got it.
So,
okay.
In person. Yeah.
The whole face-to-face thing.
Yeah, in person. And also, if it's like kind of private issue between the colleagues will use the apps like, WeChat.
Mhm.
That's about it.
So some of these correspondences are within the constraints of the organization and some are outside. Like your
No,
last one is outside of the organization?
no, it's still within the organization.
Oh, it is?
My
Right.
colleagues.
Oh, no, but I mean, is the instrument part of the
Yes.
IT
that's-
structure of the organization?
that's-
Okay.
That's like a publicly available platform. It's like the Facebook, but not quite.
Okay.
It's for the short message.
Yep. All right.
Email, intranet, I forgot about that one. A great time. Lots of meetings and then travel. Travel meetings. And,
Okay. All right, so we've got some are the same, some are different, but the reason I'm going down this hole is because what drives your knowledge sharing, caring, developing, and fostering as an asset for the organization starts with the comms. So what's your organization's policy on how to communicate? Verbal, written, none, figure it out as you go.
I came up with strategic planning, so we're
Okay.
I don't think there's like a written down policy for it. For the users, they would assume that you will use email. But there's kind of culture that we'll send it to your email and force you to check. And design that a, kind of relationship.
I'm gonna shut this door. Go ahead, I'm listening.
Okay, it's like, they will let you know.
Well,
That your email is probably need to be checked for something, but we get some days, so that's kind of the only policy like thing. I
Okay.
learned, yeah, in my training.
All right, so far, no policy.
No policy. It should sort of maybe be my job to do something like this. But the pushback has been so strong every time I tried to implement anything
Anything.
internal,
Yeah,
that there's literally some scraps of paper that
Yeah.
flutter out in my calendar. I had a year I could pull them out, but it has not
Sure.
gone very far.
okay,
Don't write anything down, don't put anything in writing that you don't want to have email or audited. There's a whole lot of policy around what you're allowed to put in forms of communication like email. There's a lot.
as far as what not to do.
Yes, what not to do. Yeah. Lots of-
So other than that, on the punitive side, that's it.
So, yeah, so like tools are prescribed, so that's, you can't deviate from that.
Okay.
The actual permission, it's maybe kind of what Kathy going down, actual permission has classifications, internal, restricted, highly restricted, and then where you can place that information, depending on the tool that you're using, will
And
determine,
classification.
right, so you may be able to, and then there's data retention, so
Yep.
that you can only leave certain information on certain communication platforms for certain months.
So that's pretty structured. Definitely he wins the high structure. It's good. But you can see how it would be easy. So say your organization has a new hire and in the first 30 days, they're trying to figure out all this stuff. But who's going to show them the ropes of anything if there's nothing to start with? At least in that case, it's all, you've got a lot of buckets and a lot of ways and a lot of things to consider in that realm.
And the training's like day one, so that's the list of things you do to onboard.
So that organization says, this is flipping important, that's important. That's what I'm trying to drive to. The organization says that's important, and they make sure that's understood. Starting on that side of the room, question 3. And you just spoke. So,
So there, at the onboarding process, there's a number of stuff you have to go through, and that's one of them. And then it's every 2 years you have to renew that, so you have to go through the same training again. Make sure.
a continual recertification, make sure you're up. And that probably sets up an audit trail for the organization to say, look, you just went through this. How do you not know this? Right? Helps protect the data and knowledge.
Yeah, and then there's also internal processes for self-reporting if you feel that you violate
Oh, good. All right.
that you're supposed to be aware of as well.
Yep.
It's just to make sure that there isn't any issues.
So that is a very good idea, is that you're creating an opportunity for someone to self-correct. Right? That's very awesome to hear.
We have onboarding training, so it's, I think, video training, with specifically email. We get tested every quarter, I think, for phishing and like we're susceptible to such
Okay,
things.
so, yeah.
Every quarter. And then, we have compliance. So what does it mean? What kind of information are we keeping private? Like, aren't you allowed to do sort of what you were describing?
All the PII and all those types of things that aren't or shouldn't be. Okay.
Nothing formal, sort of trial and error.
Okay.
And even really, should I be talking to this person or not, is something you kind of just develop your own philosophy on it. Like, in terms of, is it my job to communicate this to you? Do you need to know this or not? Is also a different project.
Written down in the mud, right? I mean, it's just not
not,
expressed.
it's a little loosey goosey.
Yeah, got it.
Nothing really for the training, but in the HR training, they do mention about, where you probably need to go off your email for some reason, and that's it.
Very same.
Are you guys nonprofits too? Are we the nonprofit too?
Well, that's funny.
Turns out he works with nonprofits.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's a great connection.
And the last question, what would, and this is just kind of open discussion at this point, because this is what I want to challenge you with, is you're going to help co-create. Now, I think maybe, seeing as we've got 5 people, maybe we just all work together and just make this simple, nonprofit and for-profit. And, right, so let's maybe relocate to, maybe it'd be easier if you come over to this one. There's less.
Come to the other
She
side.
has cookies, that's all I can say. She's got cookies.
Just let you know, cookies are now the first share.
Do you have enough sticky notes? Should we bring ours?
So to consider the following is something I want to show you. Because at one point in my life, what's in this bag was my knowledge management mechanism for an S corporation in Pennsylvania. Let me show you. Here, come on. So, in my shoebox, this is my shoebox of knowledge. Right? Anyone want to venture what this is?
Manila folder.
Yes, but think of it beyond what you think it is. Because what it was for me was my CRM. What's a CRM? Customer constituency relationship management. It's the thing that connects all the stuff with people and all. So I would, when I call a customer, I would pull out my CRM of the customer, and I would have, of course, my printed off email, so I would have record of it right here in my handling method. And then date, time, what we talked about, and I record all this stuff in their Manila folder. I mean, this was a work that made sense to me, but it's not enterprise level. It's not taggable, searchable, findable by anybody else unless somebody knows my system, right? So that's our first thing to consider. This is my data storage, document storage, content management, everything, all in one box. So as a small business, it becomes kind of habitual. As I would run the business, you get worked around doing all the tactical stuff. Strategic, tactical, strategic, fire, 5 years, you're constantly shifting, but you're still trying to keep the dollars rolling. So you're playing a lot of hats. So my data management, my content management, I got the bill from the accountant. All right, stick that in the box, that's important. I need this, and then this is about the stuff I needed, yep. So I just keep storing it in there, right? At the end of the year, tax season, whoop, hey, Mr. Accountant, I'm all set. I got everything right here. Here you go. So it became my method of transporting and exchanging that knowledge set to the people that need to figure it out because I'm not that person. I'm not the accountant. But then we went from everybody got a PC. Well, then you got to have all the software that goes with that stuff. So you continually change, you evolve, you morph, you try this, you do that. All pain points, believe me, all pain points at every level because there's such a learning curve every step you take. So what was the next thing? Oh, we're going to digitize? Oh, I know what I'll do. Where is it? Oh, no. I now have, instead of paper products, oh, that's easy. There we go. I've got thumb drives now. So what I've done is now I've stepped it up from this mess to this mess. Oh, what thumb? No, that one's full. This was a record. This is accounting on this one. And it's like, it's still a mess. It's still in my box, in my head. All I've done is digitize this mess into this mess. There's still no organization, design methodology. There's no enterprise anything. It's not connectable. It's not findable. It's not reachable. It's a mess. The challenge is most organizations that I've been in and around are still like this. They think a shared drive is the solution. Oh, everybody just use a shared drive. Oh, we're going to use email for everything. Oh, stop. Just make that stop. No one wants to sit at their desk and see 120 emails in the inbox. Nobody. And that gets back to how do you train communications? What if your organization actually trained your workforce that all email traffic could only be 5 sentences long? Whoo! Wouldn't that be a dream? So you're telling me that on the sender side, they're restricted to how much data they can send me, therefore my time is a little more manageable because I'm not sitting there reading. I gotta say, people that really love to type, if it's like, if I have to scroll down, I'm not reading it. I'm like, are you kidding me? I don't, that's an imposition on me to have to listen to you because you can say a lot. Great. In military intelligence, part of the job was to make the essence out of information that's actionable, which means you have to distill all this gunk to something a general or a colonel, oh, got it, let's go. They don't want to read a 5-page report and figure it out for themselves. Military intelligence was around to extract out the nuggets and transfer that data. So think of that going forward in this exercise. So that's it for my team. This is considered a knowledge management mechanism. You can look at that in the front of the book. So get ready to work because it's coming. It's coming. This is a slide to just reflect on. Information is just coming off the wheels. It's like, oh my God, don't send me another email. Stop. Don't CC me on this string. I don't want to see this stuff, right? In the military, we call that OBE, overcome by events. You will hit such a saturation point where you just, stuff's falling on the floor because I don't have time to read all this stuff. I don't have time. Time is definitely feeling like it's going backwards. And knowledge is just kind of, matter is dead, right? These are the challenges, and they're all equal challenges. But as a design method of an organization on how they build their workforce to deal with the knowledge will make a difference. So let's think about this in the classic sense of a nomad. This nomadic tribe has been around for many, many generations, and they've come to know where they need to go for resources, depending on the season and current conditions and what they need. So they move around. They're nomadic. What's that look like for knowledge folk? nomads. Think of it this way. What if your organization considered all its employees as, one, roaming or learning opportunities? You would almost consider your organization a learning organization. Therefore, you should design the interface, let's go with user interface, the worker's user interface as being a learner. Mind blowing. What would that mean to the organization? They actually have to become providers. Yeah, maybe we shouldn't update that 100-page 3-ring binder on email policy, and maybe we should just kind of maybe create an actual course on it so we can engage our learners versus here, figure it out. Sign this when you're done reading. Because compliance is a tough thing to generate understanding. I think it's a good example. Because in military intelligence, you had all the classifications also. A lot of those hoops were annual things, and guys just game the system. Yeah, click, click, click. Yeah, I got my certificate here. But the absorption wasn't quite there. So think of it with that standard operating procedure, anything that's that written word, that document that needs to be updated. What if you created it differently? What if you designed it to be engaging? So this is a typical organizational structure. It's right here at Kent State. This is in the military, we call this a line and block chart. It just shows all the channels, right? Who's where, who falls under who. This is great for budget lines and figuring out who's got the pots of money and who's in charge of what and who's responsible for what. Those are all good ways, and it's been around for a very long time, how to organize and how people think of an organization. The problem with this system, I'll give you a good case example. When I was in Tikrit, I was working with an organization out of Baghdad, which was at the division level, corps level, excuse me. And I communicated with them directly. And then someone from middle management, maybe somewhere around here, like the 101 division, got upset because here I was at the bottom, but I was communicating to the top directly, which bypassed them. They were not upset or happy about the content that was exchanged. They were upset because I did not follow the chain of command. It's all about the content. It's not about who's the gatekeeper in a war situation, especially. So think of this system. How many organizations are kind of represented this way where you're in? Are orgs kind of set up this way? What are some of the issues with the structure like this that you've seen? Examples? How much crosstalk's going on in a world like this?
Like across the nodes, like across that top line?
Yeah, great. Once a quarter in a meeting, maybe.
Top down.
Right. They become those silos. They become the silos. And how does that work for data and information? So KM is all about discover, capture, share, and apply. It's as simple as that. In this diagram, we look at some of the terms that are in this text that I teach from. So CAM processes is a high-end level. That's where you're combining your IT structure, the human domain, and the processes that get the work done. But that's supported by the CAM systems, the IT systems, whatever those are. And out of the base is this hard stuff, right? How do you design it? Anybody roll out a SharePoint? Anybody ever roll out SharePoint as an enterprise solution? Yeah, but you know the pain of trying to come up with a governance model for a large enterprise that doesn't want to do the hard lifting. Oh, come on, let's just roll it out. If you don't build in and understand how all those parts and pieces work in a system that complex, it'll never pay off, guaranteed. So these are the CAM foundation, these are the solutions. This is the action, and these are those mechanisms that are part of the Lego bricks that build that to stand on. And a couple of definitions here. The things we're going to talk about primarily are tacit, explicit, general, and specific. So think of your organization in these examples. General, common knowledge, easy to transfer, not a big deal, not very heavy lifting, versus specific, extremely expensive to capture and transfer, very limited population know it. So that's a high payoff if you can figure out how to get that out of someone's head and transferable, recordable and transferable. Tacit, explicit, tacit's in the head, that innate understanding. I just get a feeling, I've done this 20 years, I know when it looks this color, something's gonna happen. All these things that are intuition are these things that are a huge payoff to an organization if you can figure out how to keep people from holding all the cards and not sharing what they do know. Because that's the biggest divot in a payoff in a knowledge asset, is if you got people that are not sharing, as far as I'm concerned, show them the door. Because they are not earning the paycheck they're getting paid. Because they're the ones holding the cards. Explicit, how do you get that culture to start sharing automatically? Make it just part of the culture to make it express. So you just provide all those lanes of communication in order to help foster that communication sharing.
Is there a special meeting that is with a barcode on that wasn't correct?
I just felt goofy one night, I just thought, well, I'm being interesting. That whole data and brain, I don't know. It made sense at one point. This is actually a United States Army taxpayer paid for knowledge management chart, because the Army does knowledge management. So where does it reside? So these are some examples. So in that explicit, they're saying 20% of it is actually recorded. 80% is still in that internal understanding, that individual mind box where their knowledge is. And the challenge is, how do you get it from one to the other? How do you make it a discoverable, shareable, capturable, and applicable asset? So some, science of control, explicit knowledge. These are military frameworks, so give us some liberty here. But data, people to technology, continuity, standardized documents, that's where it shows up. But in the military framework, art of command is the concept where a lieutenant at a company level has the authority to maybe not follow doctrine and just make it on the spot judgment call.
Is that somewhat like commander's intent?
Commander's intent would be that framework, we're all going to go do this. But then as soon as the bullets fly and things change and the environment happens, then what that says, our command is, you make decisions, go do it. But you still have to be within that framework of whatever the mission intent was. And that's it. Innate knowledge, that stuff that's in your bones, innovation, that spark of innovation. So these are the challenges. Does anyone have a good example of good or bad, positive or negative, where their organization, they saw something that was able to take somebody's tacit knowledge and make it a shareable item in their organization? Or vice versa. Someone had all the keys of the kingdom and didn't play well. Oh, yeah, well, everybody knows one of those guys, right? That is a drain. As a resource, to me, I don't have time for that. If you've been around a large organization, say like the government, and you start to see the bureaucrats that hold on to that as their life savings, it's not theirs to hold to begin with, because it was paid by dollars that is not theirs. If they wanted to have the keys of the kingdom, they need to go be a private-owned company and get off the payroll. That's where I get into this culture piece, because unless there's leadership in play that believes this kind of natural resource management, which I label it at that, because knowledge management is an asset, then it's going to be hard to sell to get an organization to buy into the concept of knowledge management. But at every level, you can always affect some goodness. It may not be enterprise, but these type of things are just a good mindset going forward in any organization. People, processes, and technology. I had it organized, so by the textbook, the three elements are people, process, and technology. One thing I want to point out is once we get into the next couple of slides, it talks about definitions of organizations that have KM and what they define it. Pay attention to what's not being said in those definitions. So people are in the center as far as I'm concerned, because that's, until we get to the world of artificial intelligence, that's still the weak link, right? That's the good link too. I mean, it's not just negative, but I mean, that's the center hub. People make it work out. And the processes around that work being done. And the technology engaged. Not everybody's got a SharePoint system or need one. It's whatever technology they're using, whatever works. Actually, there's a brewery in Akron that does their knowledge management mechanism with one of the sliding doors that go to the keg room. And this door is about 30 foot by 20, and it's white. So they use white markers, and they keep their inventory. So when they take a keg out, they wipe it off and they update the data on the door. And I just think, so see, it doesn't have to be high tech. It's whatever works for the organization. And of course, Ben Franklin always pipes in that basically knowledge is money. So here's a visual on that whole process of KM: discover, capture, share, apply. A lot of organizations are good at the discover, capture, and then the rest just kind of, well, we'll get to it, or they just don't think about it. That's a challenge, to get that to continually iterate, to have a continual change and shift of that knowledge set, and then the interaction of those in the organization. You know, artifacts in this kind of work is anything that's that express knowledge, regulations, policies, sales brochures, whatever's been expressed that is part of the artifacts of that organization. Those are knowledge artifacts. Correlating to this whole knowledge management idea, it's not a direct, but it's something to think about, is the intellectual capital. How many organizations have any way of harvesting or collecting or protecting their intellectual capital? They have NDAs and all that sort of thing where it's either a joint project or a product, or it's only owned by the company. Yes? So somebody comes up with a great widget idea and they can't sell it because it was during their time employed.
Or you apply for a patent.
But that's well expressed at the front end. It's not like I didn't know. Yeah, okay. So in the human capital part, you've got knowledge, skills, and the attributes of the people. In the social capital, that's the relational part of this capital. It's because now, think of it like this. So you're coming into a meeting, you're in a product meeting, and somebody just saw something on PBS about this thing. Oh my gosh, did you guys see the thing about the stuff? Oh, what is it? Well, let me tell you. So they come in, they bring this contextual knowledge of something outside the organization, and they monetize it within the organization. They consume it. So that's having social capital recognition of who those connectors are is valuable in the knowledge management schema, because those are people you want on the payroll, right? You want to reward that somehow. And then organizational capital, the artifacts, the things that are of the organization and what it generates. So this is to give you all the parts, pieces, and things to think about as we get ready to jump into the work. So here we are under definitions. So this is the Army's definition of KM. KM is the process of enabling knowledge flow to enhance shared understanding, learning, and decision-making. What if your organization had something that held that up as a flag to do? Because decision-making is where the organization, I assume, wants to get to quicker, better decisions. Doing. Here's a large international from USAID health, knowledge management global health care program. Knowledge saves lives, bottom right corner. Knowledge management is a systematic approach of collecting and curating knowledge and connecting people to it so they can act effectively. So we're not talking about just curation for curation's sake. or build the best taxonomy, or, it's a lot of things around the hub of, and remember, the center of my target, the people, right? Getting action out of this. And NASA's a very large organization, and they've been doing knowledge management for a fairly long time. I'm going to say maybe 35 years, 30 years. KM is getting the right info to the right people at the right time and helping people create knowledge and share and act upon information in ways that will measurably improve the performance of NASA and its partners. So it's already looking at it in a very global way, that it's not just about them. They've already recognized, somebody in the one workshop this morning about vendors, the rub between vendors and suppliers and users. They're already writing this into the definition because they know that there's value if it's well nurtured in knowledge development and knowledge sharing, not just within NASA. So where does that all go to? What am I getting to is that the change of how work is going to be done is going to constantly shift. These are the top 7 things that are kind of significant to the future employee. They have flexible work environment, customize their own work, shares information, uses new ways to communicate and collaborate, can become a leader, shifts from knowledge worker to learning worker, learns and teaches at will. These are things that are cultural, but without a design of HR having a role in this, IT having a role in this, KM having a role in this, and of course leadership has to buy into this. But this is a community build. But these are really things that we're looking at of how people want their work to be, which is important. So this is from the same book, same author. It's just before and after. If you want to look at some change concepts here. Work at the corporate office, work anywhere. Use company equipment, use any device. These are the before and afters, which maybe somebody younger than 30 wouldn't know what the left column looks like or what it's even about. I get that. But a lot of the folks that are in management and leadership know the left side, but they may still be stuck there in their expectation of, oh, we're going to hire 10 new people, but we're not going to let them work 20% remote. Why? If you've got the capability, you can do it. You can VPN. You can, figure out the tech side. Why? Let them work wherever they want, as long as the work gets done. So it's changing how the employee, the organization has to meet that learner, that worker. This is a recent survey. There's 4 slides here, so we're almost. But I wanted to show you that, that they surveyed 1,045 executives in 2016, looking at what it really means to the bottom line of an organization. Does understanding and embracing the mission or purpose of the organization increase employee productivity? 70% said, oh, heck yeah. How many organizations actually create that nurtured culture approach to the new hire and sustain it? Not like, yeah, we gave that postcard when you first joined up and nobody even talks about it anymore. It really doesn't, right? Make it part of that active culture. What is most rewarded by your employer? What is most rewarded by your employer? The ability to create a profit or the ability to create a benefit? Not mutually exclusive, but definitely different. What is your personal principal driver at work? The belief that my work has purpose and meaning. These are kind of like those things you should be shown to say, what are we not doing right? Why is our attrition at 23%? Why do people just keep walking out the door? Are they engaged? Are they looking at their value and the organization's meaning as being congruent? And the second one out of that whole metric, they want to be a leader. 21% want to lead. And the most recent, what's the biggest thing that's going to make people shift to work in 2018? Number 1, I'm bored. Need new challenge. It's not, I want to make more money. I want to work more hours. I want to have less health benefits. Number two, culture does not fit with my values. Number three, I've either lost my job or expected to work. Any of these ringing true? Any questions, any feedback, any case examples of anything that we've talked about so far? It's not the same? No, it's three.
No, the actual label. Maybe lost my job or expect to go both. I didn't get a lot of sleep last night.
Yeah, no, that's probably what my excuse is. I must have,
Okay.
but I do have the link.
Okay.
You can go get it. I forget what that one is, but yeah. I just wanted to see what it should.
Yeah.
Hold on. Go start.
I'm not taking notes, but
So that leads us, these are organizational pain points. What are the abrasions that the organization goes through on a regular basis? I created these because I've lived every one of these. You're new. What do you know? Nothing like having the new person show up and we'll throw around ideas and the old crunchies are like, who are you and when did you get here? You don't even know enough about this place to tell us anything. You know, that kind of them and us. We tried that years ago and it failed. Yeah, you know, you got one of those institutional folks that have been around for decades, and yeah, I remember when we tried that. That was 22. Yeah, it failed. Don't know what you don't know. Well, good example of that is when you get in an organization and people assume, oh, you need to be over in this building for this meeting. Where's that? I don't even know where that is. You know, there's all that common knowledge that has to be absorbed over time that are usually pain points to somebody at some point because you get egg on the face about not knowing. You just didn't know. Janice just left. She won the lottery. So here's that vacuum suck sound when somebody's knowledge set that was never expressed and codified anywhere walks out the door. Not only do you lose that knowledge set, but you lose that potential that was tied to that knowledge set. Hopefully, not all people have that potential, but in that case, she had all the keys to the kingdom. Out. I put the spreadsheet in the shared drive a week ago. What the heck? Well, good luck finding it because there's no naming convention. There's no nothing. Good luck. No tagging required. Just put stuff out there. So these are all those pain points. You're supposed to ask those questions. Oh, funny you should ask. So one of these pain points that the Intel world of the Army does well is that at every echelon you have availability to certain data. You don't have availability to all the data, but you got your slice of the pie. So you're working on a project and you want to go out and do this build a school. Well, we don't know anything about that location. We don't know anything about the guy that we're talking about there. We've got no data at this level. So part of the system is that we have to send up a request for information, which means it then makes the stops at the next 12 gates going up the chain. And they do their data search and they do their accumulation and they pass it down, or if they don't have enough, they send it higher. So eventually you'll get a full width and depth view of whatever that data was, because we have a fair amount of restrictions on where data is housed and what access you have. So a request for information is an easy way, and I've seen this at the national labs, where this would have saved a lot of taxpayer money. A couple of folks get an idea to build a widget. Oh, we're gonna do this thing, and this will be great. We're gonna spend all this money, and we're gonna develop this thing and research it. They've only been here 3 years. So they spend all this time, energy, and whatnot, and then somebody from another part of the lab comes over and says, what are you guys working on? Oh, we're building this widget over here. Oh, well, you know, there was 2 guys 20 years ago working on something just like that. It's over in building X. Did you guys go look at it? We didn't even know. What? Now, if there had been a way before resources were spent, time was invested on anything, that you had to scour everything that the industry or the organization or the institution has done historically, and if it's not there, okay, let's go. But what if your organization had that stop gate to protect its resources from spending money yet again on something that's already been spent on? I see those applications all the time. That requires heavy lifting. You know, it's a smart design. It's an easy concept. It's a smart design. You'd think that would take all that knowledge being findable, searchable, and usable.
There may be internal challenges to that from not necessarily a legal, but maybe like an accounting perspective, right? So in order for you to take and transfer that work or that knowledge that's done in one part of the business to another part of the business, there may need to be a budget transfer as well, where it says, you know what?
We transfer the cost of this.
If we have to-
Sure, take it off the books.
Then it's cheaper for us to just
Sure.
redo it from scratch,
Yeah.
right? Even though the better answer might be just transfer money. So those things.
So those are those walls that are separating things for different reasons. And the NASA was, last year I was speaking in Boston at a knowledge management conference for the health sciences industry. And the NASA knowledge management fellow was there from, must have been up in that neck of the woods. And he gave this example. And as soon as I heard it, I was like, wow. It's always amazing to me what simple ideas are just so powerful. So here they had a resident expert, and I think the field was in HR, maybe. I forget what the expertise was. But part of the KM culture that this leader was trying to get engaged with out here, again, think of bureaucratic, you know, everybody's got their cubicle, you know, I'll send you an email, but I can hit you with a paperclip too. But so that lack of interaction. So they would create an announcement across the organization saying, hey, Dr. Smith is going to be in the atrium for the next 2 hours to answer any questions you have on his expertise. Go. And they just made they made the space available with the intent of knowledge sharing. And not only that, but the ability to build face-to-face communication and cultural development in that community, which would never happen before other than, see at lunch, might meet you somewhere, but not with that intent, sponsored intent. So time and money was said, all right, people will still be on the clock, but we think this is important. That's a cool idea. Easy to do, very easy. Why wait till the 1-year company party where somebody might introduce you? So one quick video about an organization called Holacracy. Anyone seen Holacracy yet? Holacracy is anti that organizational structure we had up here on the slide just previous, the Kent State line and block. Holacracy is a different way to think. An organization can be constructed and work.
This is Adam. He goes to work every day and senses tensions within his organization. The feeling that something could be better than it currently is. In one case, it's a task or responsibility that no one owns. In another, it's an inefficient and wasteful process. How can he improve the way things work? First, he turns to his manager, Karen, but she's overwhelmed and can't make all the decisions. So employees rely on consensus building and politics. But that's too slow, and things get stuck. When they can't influence each other effectively, all people can do is protect their turf. Ultimately, they disengage, and the entire organization suffers. Holacracy is a new way of organizing your company. It's designed to remove obstacles so work can get done faster, with more clarity and more autonomy. With Holacracy in place, instead of trying to convince his boss to act, Adam can propose getting the authority he needs to act on his own. He goes to a special meeting designed to achieve incremental improvements in the way things are organized. It follows a disciplined process that gives everyone a voice, but without the tyranny of consensus. In the meeting, Adam gets more authority to fix issues himself, so he can move forward without requiring his manager's help. In this way, Holacracy distributes leadership throughout the company, empowering everyone to be an entrepreneur in their roles. Instead of serving the boss and fighting the status quo, everyone drives continual improvement, serving the purpose and the customers.
So pretty dreamy. Sounds great. I I've seen a couple of cases where this is still in play. Zappos adopted this before they got bought up by Amazon, which was ironic because Zappos was pretty much a leader in organizational culture to begin with. And I've worked with a international nonprofit that has recently adopted holacracy as an operational, how they work. The heavy lifting with holacracy, it's like designing a good knowledge management structure, is it takes a heck of a lot of work at the front end, building it. And with holacracy, you actually have to build out, like in governance, you have to build out a constitution, which defines all the outputs of the organization, and takes people out of the line and block chart and actually drives them to outputs, organizational outputs. What's your work supposed to be working towards?
Can I have a little reflection on this?
Sure.
Because I think that the way that it's, the advantage of this system is not only getting things done, but also solve a problem that has been haunting knowledge management for a while. Because in the old fashion, we think about why people refuse to share their knowledge because they need that knowledge as their expertise to protect their territory. But this actually solves that problem because if you're getting involved in a system like this, it's not like you're giving out your knowledge and letting people compete with you, but actually you're getting a self-developed chunk, right? You will become an expert in a new area, which people absolutely don't like.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And my recommendation to anybody trying to adopt the knowledge management structure would be to look at holacracy because it's going to, for an organization to adopt knowledge management, you're going to have to make a culture shift anyway. So why not look at what's under the hood? Maybe we need to look at the whole machine versus changing the extent of windows. Yeah, good point. So this is how you're going to work this project. You're going to be the resource leadership team. And this is my vision of where I think KM is going to be in the future, is that you have to tie in IT, HR, and KM, because these are all the elements that drive the three elements of what KM is: technology, process, and people. These are the gatekeepers to all of this. And what I've seen the Army has done is that they've created a knowledge management officer, the CKO, Chief Knowledge Management Officer, that sits right next to the CTO, Chief Technology Officer. And they're joined at the hip. They have to go forward together because they cannot operate separately. They both represent something different, but they have to work together. The biggest, I think, benefit to any organization looking to do this is you have to bring in HR. Because if you're not hiring right, you will never get folks that share knowledge. You have to build it in, you have to bake it into the system. So this is your framework. Your organization, your group is going to represent these three elements as this new leadership team going forward. And this is your task. Discuss and create an organizational knowledge structure / model that will present. And the group will outline what that ITKMHR leadership model will implement on your top 4 lines of operation. And I'm gonna let you guys bake off whatever you think you have to figure out what your industry is. But come up with something that you've got some expertise or familiarity with. Anyone here use the term lines of operation before? Go ahead, tell me what that means.
Well, it may not exactly mean
Okay.
the same here. Lines of operation is like not the trend, it's actually the process of a project. It hits the first line, it's solved, then you come up to the second, and it's not, you bump it back.
Okay. In this framework, think of lines of operation as what is your organization primarily doing? Like an academic structure is, we work with employees, we deliver content and learning to students, we have a physical structure. These are the big hubs, the big ticket items, the big muscle movements of the organization. We're not going to get down to the weed whackers and but the big muscle movements of an organization. So think of it in your verticals. Tell me more.
Oh, no, I guess I just can't tell if you're describing it as like a business line, like here's our core industries.
Yeah,
McDonald's is fast food
Yeah.
and real estate and.
Yeah, exactly. You're right in there. Yep. So think of, and I want you to talk about how this structure is gonna work with these elements of KM, given this power seat at your, whatever your top 4, because you're gonna have a long list. But just give me 4 main ones you wanna work with. And on the right is kind of some I threw out there. These are facets of those operational lines, things to consider. Internships, mentorship, onboarding process, job descriptions, lessons learned, strategic future proofing, down to the tagging, naming convention, taxonomy, compliance, augmented reality. Where are we going? Where are we going to be in 5 years? Recruitment, retention. As an organization, just think of how all of this could be affected if this was the driver of all the work. Maybe you use holacracy, maybe you don't. It doesn't matter on the process of implementation, but we're just going to, I want you to present your top four, whatever those, what you call them, verticals, whatever those main muscle movements are of the organization. How do you hire for it? How do you train for it? How do you professionalize where you want all these folks to get to based off of what you just consumed? Exciting? So think about who's going to represent in your presentation. The IT piece, the KM, the HR piece. Go with the experience of your group. You got somebody that may be IT heavy, I'm guessing you might be. Or not. Go with your strengths. Pick your industry, figure out who's doing what, and your skill distribution and your asset and your tasks here. If you got a device, go to that web page. I just created this last night, so it's off of our Pioneer website, but it's got some images from the slide deck that will help you kind of work through these for reference. And any questions? And to get your juices going, we're going to have one more video, because I'm all about augmented reality. Anyone here worked in augmented reality? Yeah, tell me.
For our marketing, so all of our Christmas cards were those.
Tell me what that means.
It meant that you would take some aspects of the real world and mesh them with aspects of the virtual world to create, well, in our case.
Third world. Yeah.
Delight.
So you get like a virtual massage or
It was like
rum and
virtual
cokes or-
snowmen and
okay.
a snow globe.
I'll introduce
Mixed
what she's
reality
talking
breaks
about.
down the barriers between physical and virtual realities. Let's see how we can alter realities across people, places, and objects. Here we have a real office, populated with real things. Let's now adjust reality by adding virtual objects to this physical space. Notice how these objects are aware of the real surfaces in the office. Next, let's replace the real person with an avatar. This allows her to be present, even though she's not physically in the room. Now let's adjust the environment itself and make it virtual. Notice how the virtual objects in Avatar continue to persist. Finally, let's tie back this entire virtual scene to the original physical room. A subtle boundary grid can reveal real obstacles, making it safer to walk around this virtual environment. Mixed reality unlocks exciting new experiences that merge the physical and the virtual worlds.
One more. That video just kind of shows it in this big glossy what augmented reality or mixed reality can be. This is a no kidding what it looks like at the workforce level.
The mixed reality modern workplace is about ushering in the next evolution in computing and productivity.
Work has a very different definition as we move into the digital revolution, where work means thinking and creativity and collaborating with others.
I think the modern workplace is changing. It's affecting everyone. Why wouldn't we want to make people's jobs better when we can? Mixed reality
allows us to find new ways to express creatively and also problem solve creatively.
Information workers have been pretty well supported by technology over the past 3 decades, but there's a lot more that we need to do to support how the workplace is changing.
More and more today, people are working remotely. They're not all located in the same physical building. Imagine being able to change the people you're meeting with, the place where you're meeting, or the content that you're collaborating around, all in a matter of seconds.
It really unlocks new possibilities for the way that information worker can be productive. Inherently saying you want a PC on every desk implies that people have desks. But we know that there's a huge part of the workforce that actually don't have desks. In fact, we think 80% of the workforce are what we call first-line workers, and we think they number over 2 billion worldwide.
When computers have the ability to understand the real world, a bunch of really powerful things can happen.
We've been looking at the critical workflows for the first-line worker, and we are committed to bringing products to market to help them do their jobs more effectively. One of the first critical workflows that we uncovered was for the field service worker who often needs to call in for some expert help. And with mixed reality, we can bring the expert to them, and the expert can see what they're seeing and can annotate into their space and help them solve the problem and verify that it's been done correctly. Another critical workflow that we've uncovered is around training employees on new products, processes, equipment. Companies are spending a lot of time and money on this today, and these things change often, and they're so critical to their operations. Another area of opportunity is around space planning. Companies need help designing and planning out their spaces efficiently. Mixed reality enables them to view their designs with digital objects, and they can see them at scale, and they can walk through them and iterate before they have to make the costly decisions.
And I think all those things come together to sort of shape what this modern workplace looks like as we go forward. Digital transformation is really impacting every industry, every company today. And the companies that we see that are most successful at digital transformation are those that empower their employees and rethink the employee experience all the way from the boardroom to the information worker and then onto the first line worker.
In the past, Microsoft has focused mostly on providing us with ways in which we can do more. Now we're starting to entertain ideas of what it means to achieve more. And that by its nature has a certain amount of value associated with it.
And this has inspired us at Microsoft in the work we do to create products and services that will empower people in this new world of work to do their very best work to solve real problems and to achieve more.
Going back to how your workforce gets proficient, how's the onboarding process? Think if you designed your organization to be consumable by a learner versus a worker. Think of this type of activity to where it could apply to many things in many fields, but it's just nothing but possibilities to change, to be too involved. And that's your job. That's what your job is today.
Can you bring up more, please?
Self-organized, figure it out. An adult learning method. All that.
Should we just come up with some sort of an organization that has 4 pieces, lines of operation?
Yes, that would be for, because some of the lines of operation are going to be things like, did you mention that HR was like multiple lines?
Well, how are you guys, I'm not going to prescribe, but just things to think about, you know.
That's more like.
But the center hub of your strategic leadership are HR, KM, and IT. So those are who you're representing in this development phase. Your lines of operation or whatever you decide are the heavy lifting pieces. If it's HR and your software as a service HR requirements provider, then sure. Or a large HR force you have to work with.
So like let's just take a library, for example. then your lines of operations would be lending, reference, career advancement, what would be the four biggest things in life?
Would budget be one?
Yeah, budget is. But I think that's where I get confused between what are the things that we care about the operational considerations, because budget seems like an operational consideration rather than a
True.
business. So that's where I'm fuzzy on.
Yeah, it's actually, it's just that, are we thinking about products and services, or are we talking, what do you mean by line of operation?
Okay. Can somebody just do a quick keyword search and see if there's a definition for lines of operation? Maybe I can find a better way to say it. I think going back to maybe I threw out the budget as the wrong concept. So budget would be the thing that drives all lines of operation. But consideration of that to be a line of operation would probably be fundraising, which would feed budget, but depending on her situation, fundraising could be a major line of operation to feed that budget. So more activities.
When your activities
Yeah,
in business,
yeah, more
may
activity.
not be a product or service, it could be like, say, investing or something.
Yeah.
I kind of like the idea of using the library as our business because we all use.
We all know what one is.
Yeah.
No, anti-library.
Always an outlier, always an outlier.
My only thought there, my first thought was though, the library doesn't necessarily have to run at a surplus, right? Like doesn't necessarily have the same constraints as a regular business. It's a government entity, it's tax supported. It's not a government entity?
It is, but.
It doesn't get its funding through necessarily me going and getting a free library card and then checking out a book. So.
I guess
It's not
library needs
consumer
to
driven, so,
consistently prove itself to value the budget, right? Because there's rumors that this LISD without be disappearing in 10 years. Now we're gonna find it out because we have not been properly shown our value yet, or doing enough job for the market. People just think about the white library.
Well, you bring up a point because it's not a consumer product. You're not driving your baseline on people walking in the door per se buying something.
But
Right.
there are business libraries.
Okay.
Or corporation libraries.
Maybe a printer or a media producer, content producer. Maybe just trying to come up with something that's going to work for everybody to be clear, concise. I get your point because it's not a commercial enterprise, so to speak.
Is that where your background is? The library, is that why you sort of like gave me the sneak eye?
They're going to say, shh.
What if we honor it into a information service? Because that's kind of covered most of the library functions, but it's also kind of based on like return on investment. Business, it's like consulting company.
Like Huffington Post or is like somebody that's a publisher that sells advertising, so either newspaper or TV media.
That sounds very accessible.
Okay.
News radio station.
There you go.
And so
Well, then maybe that could be part of your lines of operation, right? So if you do media, radio, television, print, web.
What if we are CNN or something?
That's interesting, because there's like the media companies now that own the radio stations in Cleveland, they're almost like the ad agency and the publication all in one or something.
It's multimedia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They do everything. They will actually sell you services, advertising services, and then advertise on their own platform, which owns all the stations. It's really, everything. You
Okay.
Everybody
So
good
there's
with
flip
it?
charts, if you want to draw it out, make it more better.
Like the TV station and the radio station and maybe the newspaper. One at the same time.
Like a Wall Street Journal. Yeah, it does, it has to, it has
Hmm. Yeah, they've got a website.
Which lines of operation?
So I mean, that would be easy. You'd have your website, you'd have your print publication, say newspaper. You've got your radio station. And then you've got your advertising services that you sell people advertising. Not just the advertising, but you help them create ads. So what we call that marketing services. So that's the, so basically what we're saying is there's, for each of those areas, there's employees that communicate with each other.
Yeah, so when you're thinking of your lines of operation, come back to the pie of IT, KM, and HR. What are the considerations as you all work together from those three separate segments that are now one? Going through these lines of operation, how do you build a workforce? How do you make it work for the processes?
Are we allowed to stick
Absolutely.
these up on the wall?
Yep. I was trying to write on it first. I don't know about if it'll bleed through on the wall.
I want them to be sticky.
Oh,
Yeah, they're not sticky. It's just very short.
We put it on the table.
So, because what I guess what I wanted was like one page for every line of operation.
Smart.
Because I'm still not clear what our lines are.
You need this one over here?
Yeah,
So
you might
do
want
we
to
need-
write on it first. and
We
then
need to
figure
make
it
like
out.
a
Yeah.
bogus org chart, just to, real quick, just to show
And
us
it's
what
gonna
we
be
think it would look
super
like.
useful.
All right, so let me, right here, let's go. We'll collaborate. We'll
Right.
share our knowledge on the org chart. We have those.
Here, use this one.
You want,
That's good.
does this thing need to go up here or just, if you want one?
Nobody can write.
It's gonna fall down.
I would write.
We'll say,
Could you open that door, please? Sure. Seems awful stuff. Thank you.
you smell like cookie, by
Good thing or bad thing.
the way. Well,
I prefer people come to me.
HR would, not approve of me like putting you in my mouth, so it's a bad thing.
The day about you feel safe here.
Oh, that reminds me of the Gingy in Shrek. You guys want to join me in the milk, don't you?
Never seen
Because it's gingerbread, like a human being can move, and when they're trying to punish him, they just simply with his leg and drown him in the milk.
it. And then it falls off.
Yeah, because I got choking, yeah.
So we had,
One of them was advertising.
So yes, we had marketing, newspaper, radio station, and website.
so,
Is that the same thing as distribution?
Ah,
Because
there you go.
I wonder if the content creation is like one line, and then do they also own like the cable properties, the channels, themselves, like the platforms?
So would you then put all these as one? Would you mean,
Distribution?
Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
Because your distribution channels may constantly change.
that's true.
So distribution is the function.
And so that I'd say one would be platforms.
I guess we probably want to keep this structure really flat as we're designing an ideal organization. Anything more than 3 layers.
good so far?
So we got,
So we just start with the general CEO at the top for a generic media corporation. This is basically broken down into 4 verticals: one for print media, online media, radio, and then marketing and sales.
So,
Go ahead.
no.
So then, and then from there, then you would break this down to maybe print media is, paper one. Small Go Gazette. Right, and then from there, that would be like this would be like the Plain Dealer or the Beacon Journal, and there they would have their own breakdown, right? So there would be a CEO of that paper. Yes, yeah. Right. And then, same thing here, right? Your online media, however that breaks down, your radio would be, similar to the Friends where, station one. Right?
Is this sufficient for lines
It's
of
92.8, whatever,
What are your consensus?
and maybe there's other orgs, and maybe there's like East Coast, West Coast, whatever. Right. And then I think this gets down to, I think this is good, this marketing and sales, right? Because this would be your example of someone who, maybe you've got a creative department, you've got just a straight sales team.
So can I press pause for a second? You were given the keys to the kingdom, no constraints, no budgetary restraints. You were given all the ammunition to help model and develop what is yet to become. So I would challenge you to now work this into something unfamiliar. You're putting the boxes together in familiar terms.
But based on that question from 5 minutes ago, which is what does that term mean that you were using? Right. Are we able to kind of align around what that is now?
Or do we do it differently?
He's just trying to get consensus of what the words are, where the buckets are.
Right. This
And
is
then now we can, once you have that. You had said lines of distribution,
So
or just distribution.
I guess I was thinking that there's a missing layer here, and I'm not looking to add more layers of management or anything like that.
No,
But
that always
because
helps.
these three things seem like divisions of one line of business, at least what I would call a line of business. We have media, then we have platforms might be another one, because I might,
right.
so I might have holdings.
And I think the point is that depending on the context of the company, it could be arranged a bazillion different ways. And
Yeah.
I've worked with companies who've reorged 3 times in 1 calendar year.
Ouch.
It's. I think the point is that there's certain within a global commerce ecosystem, there's numbers of different somethings that you do to keep the lights on.
Yeah.
Right. So at Oracle, a lot of people know us for our database. We also have Java. We also have industry verticals around finance and communications and healthcare, right? And so there may be things where if we build a healthcare product, it may sit on top of the Oracle database. It's on another part of the company. Those would just be one of those lines of operation. You then have to work across and hold all those relationships. So,
I can see what you're saying is that if you start from because this is kind of getting isolated by itself, whereas these can kind of be grouped together. So you had said one was platform, another was distribution, by which you meant sort of like outlets, basically.
I don't remember saying distribution, I think he said distribution, but yeah, I guess my concern was that I wanted to make sure we were meeting what his expectations in line of business were, because these.
right, and that's all I was trying to do as well.
Yeah.
I think there it's just then becomes what is the specifics on what we think a line of business should be for us to then continue the exercise.
I will go with whatever you guys want.
Yeah. And I don't think this is it necessarily. I just think that was a way to articulate, get us at least on a common.
What do you think over here?
Oh, I'm just drawing a structure. I don't know which industry we're gonna land, but this is just my supposing proposed idea for any structure that I think you keep it in. Here is the CEO or whatever you want to call them, and this is the different function of an organization. But what I want to add is that, different from that one, information section or like an intelligence analysis section that they will process the information data problem immediately to support the decision-making process for each the department. And then all of this information, since if you can notice that these are the same color, that the department, the executive department will report here. Well, we have another joint point of the intelligence office.
So that would be like a department or a person or a team or?
To facilitate the communication and to do this knowledge management process. Well, it is a different process, but it's like also putting service for each of the departments.
So when you said there was you have HR, CTO, and KM, were you seeing those as three people that we need to account for?
These are the function.
Okay. So there has to be
So
someone.
think of your work experience, what HR does, what IT does, or CTO, CIO, and what KM would fall under, right? In those domains of what they own. And now we've taken it from being independents to merging them as form and function because they're all about the people, process, and technology and making them work together.
So whenever this is just my team, this is not my organization that does this, I wasn't mentioned it, but it's just my team. Whenever we start a new project, we do a wall of knowledge. And it starts with us going into a room and taking a wall and putting what we know, what we don't know, and then where we think the next steps are. And I guess I was wondering about looking at all of the knowledge in terms of how technology could support a wall of knowledge for people throughout their journey in each of these areas. So whether you are a new hire, whether you are an entrenched worker, whether you are outgoing, whether there's a wall of knowledge situation that you could have virtually, because that's the problem with the wall of knowledge, right? Is that it's this thing with sticky notes on a board, and once the wall of knowledge is taken down, that wall of knowledge doesn't exist. But if it were this virtual thing that continued to exist, to grow, that I could go into a virtual room and understand this silo, but even if I'm coming from here, we could be creating these virtual walls. Also, the idea that it's virtual would allow it to be tagged searchable.
So you're gonna use HoloLens to do that?
That seems like a good idea.
Okay.
Because I've heard that we have a lot of money.
Only like $3,000 a headset.
Yeah, plus the.
Do we need to build out like what each of these would be responsible for, just so we have a common understanding there as well? Here's what we think HR does, here's what we think the CTO does.
Yeah.
We might as well find out what everybody thinks about each one of those first.
So what I'll do a little design thinking workshop here. So how about we do a KM here, and then we'll do
We're doing a sprint.
CTO here.
And for any CAM type questions, I have a textbook right here for reference.
And then just start writing on stickies what you think something they would be responsible for, and you can kind of build up a persona around each.
Great idea.
Do we care about color coding? Can we just use whatever?
Yeah. I mean, if you want to use your own special colors, and then we can present maybe what we, I don't know. Cookie color?
Just wants cookies, period.
You need a frosting that colored marker.
It's true. You need sprinkled marker.
So the intent is to try to gather as many thoughts around what people's perceptions are of these positions, right? That's what you're.
Right.
Smart way to do it. I like
Because
it.
then we can start to figure out then what we could
What's important out of this,
change.
yeah. I like it. I like it. Just as a time check, we've got about an hour left.
Um,
You're a nonprofit?
Schmidt House. Sorry.
It's behind your head.
It's literally flipped over.
Yeah,
That's hilarious. How does that even happen?
I don't know, but I just assumed it was like a devil may care type of thing. Is that- Oh, okay.
How long have you been allowing me to walk around like that?
I just assumed it was a look, okay? I wasn't gonna judge.
I figured you just didn't want anybody to know where you're from or your name.
That's as far as I can get. We don't know what KM is yet.
Yeah, well, here's the book. I mean, if there's a,
Lots of resources.
collaboration. So this may be of an assistance on the CAM side, what they refer to as knowledge management infrastructure summary. Give you kind of an idea of what parts and pieces might fit.
No, it is. Yeah.
You can flip through there if you want, maybe another source that helps. Maybe it'll help if I go back through the CAM definitions and the other organizations to help you with CAM.
Yeah, like that one.
The systematic process of collecting and curating knowledge and connecting people to it so they can act effectively.
That's everything. Everything today.
Hi, my name is Elena here, and I'm talking about.
Just to give you another point of reference for what knowledge management is, this is about a 1.5-minute video that was an intellectual property donation to my nonprofit that's on our front page. It may help clarify or solidify CAM.
What I think knowledge management is all about. So I think knowledge management can be defined in many ways. One definition I like is this one from NASA. Knowledge management is getting the right information to the right people at the right time and helping people create knowledge and share and act on information in ways that will measurably improve the performance of NASA and its partners. That definition sounds right, but I think it's simpler than that. I think knowledge management is about making connections. In particular, making connections between people, process, and technology. First, there's people, and this is the biggest slice of the knowledge management pie. I think most of knowledge management is about interacting to generate, capture, share, and apply knowledge, and ultimately learn. When people come together, they build on each other's expertise, as well as learn from each other's experiences to create new knowledge. These social knowledge-building interactions can help break down corporate silos and build a positive culture. Then there's process, the next biggest slice of the pie. Clear processes help us capture, curate, and share knowledge. It's important to understand workflows, how information connects from point A to point B and beyond, so you can identify and remove any barriers to that flow of information. Understanding workflow is also important because when you're looking for tools to help capture knowledge, they should be reflective of the processes people use. There's also an evaluation and process improvement component to this, so that we are always attempting to learn from our actions. Finally, there's technology, the smallest slice of the pie, but clearly an important one because technology can enable knowledge storage, retrieval, and exchange. It's really bringing the people and process pieces of the pie together. The big question is, how do you engage people through technology to help them share information, document information, and collaborate? I personally am a huge fan of the social intranet. It's one way to do this. It's a tool that can be used to create communities of practice, social networks across geographies, and virtual workspaces. So that's it. That's what I think about knowledge management. Thank you very much.
So, no.
Because if we said that's enough, people would say
What's our time frame?
You've got about, it's about 10 after, so you've got less than an hour total.
What is the time allotted for this part of the activity?
Well, I would say I ideally set up a time hack of about 12 to 15 minutes per presentation, but last time we had 5 groups. So I presume you'll probably present for maybe 15, 20. So you've got roughly 30. Because we're out the door at 4.
Okay.
What's next?
So should we, so if we're done with ideas here, we probably just go through them.
Sure.
Role by role, and just make sure we're in alignment, and maybe add anything else or remove something that we don't think is relevant. So since we're all looking at CTO, should we just start there?
What is CTO stand for?
Chief Technology Officer. So mine is pink. So I have things like coding standards, technology platforms, processes, standards, methodologies that teams would use to complete their work, tools and that. Is anyone like not familiar with those CTO as far as like a company? That's what
I put the purchase and management of devices, again, for that information security.
So I was just thinking, like, in terms of IT in general, the platforms you can use, the tools you use.
Should they be responsible for those things?
Mine, like a social internet. So it's portal for everyone to share.
And that would side. And then we've got training, tech focus. Is that continued learning?
Yes, because whenever you install something, you need to give them training.
Okay.
What is this one here?
Information security. I would also add logging and data management.
Is it incorporating new technologies?
What's gonna help reduce the cost?
Efficiency gains, reviewing tech issues. You seem stressed. You don't really have a poker face, do you?
No, I just don't know. I don't know where we're going. Not here, I just don't
Oh,
know.
we'll figure it out.
Yeah, I think we're
It'll
getting.
come.
Okay,
It's the
usually
whole-
I'm like.
Trust the process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. But does anything here stand out to you that just seems
Far out now.
for understand? Okay.
I think it's more like, where are we going? That's where I'm stressed. Everything else, I'm like, yeah, thank you.
So maybe at some point we might want to come back once we do this and maybe just do like a summary statement of each one's role then based on everything that we put here. But probably just go through the HR stuff. So I took a different approach. I think a lot of what I saw. So corporate liability. So HR is not there for the employee. HR is there for the corporation, right? Conflict management, resolution, performance reviews. And then I built up the hiring ones. I put improvements and it's separate aspects of that.
I just had that you would be introduced to what the mission of the organization is by HR probably when you hired on. And that HR sometimes is involved with the intranet or the newsletter that goes around.
So they can
And then also the chain of command might be established by HR just in terms of communication. You might know how to communicate better knowledge if you actually know who's your boss or who your boss is.
So here's some important thing that we're announcing and to learn more and go talk to your manager or the head of
Just all
this.
kinds of things like there'll be a lunch meeting that's not, it's optional. You can come or so-and-so's scholar about or whatever,
Social connector.
Yeah. Sometimes HR is responsible for that.
I had benefits and payroll management training. I had employee relations, but I think that's I don't know if it's similar or a duplicative, but that's what I had in mind was that, and then employee career advancement. I think
think this sure would be nice, but I agree that HR is there to, it would be nice if they promoted a culture that.
Maybe that's what you have to be writing down is what's not there. What you just brought up, they should be in charge of the culture. Is that up there?
Well, I put they should be in charge of the culture
That's kind of a should be or could be,
yeah.
ought to be, right?
Yeah,
Versus
usually
usually.
that's just more reactionary. It's like, we might
Exactly.
get sued if we don't have another workshop.
Exactly.
Think back to the questions that started off at the time today of your own organizations.
Look at, yeah.
So I didn't really know what, this is kind of the gray area for me, so I just put, I guess, based on what we saw, what I think the skill sets of this person would need to have. So I put knows who all the parties are, so there's someone who understands the full corporate organization and what role everyone plays. And then the value that each of those roles then brings to the process. And then understands just more, not necessarily based in their organization, but just sort of understands the cultural or the sort of the roadblocks that could come up, and you can be able to see those things before they happen. Has that experience?
I think that's really interesting, and it highlights the tentacles that are in between each of these groups, because like knows who all the parties are and knows value each role brings seems to be like an HR function. But knowledge management to me seems like it would provide the tools for if you're stepping into, I'm going to start working with this line of business, I need to know who all the parties are, I need to know the value each role brings. I was working off of the definition that was, I think, on the presentation about actionable information that you would take and do that. So I don't know if I did this one, but I wrote market data, FCC rules and regulations, the properties, the physical, the digital properties. Because how many times have you heard somebody say, we have an office where? The mission, competitive analysis, business targets. But again, I don't know.
So I took more of the approach of just sort of like the mechanisms by which to transfer knowledge amongst everybody. So how to run a meeting, communications policy, definitions of everybody's roles, maybe establishing ways to incorporate co-creating so you're working together, documentation so that you actually have like an archive of information to access certain training, which actually the other two could be training as well.
Would this be knowing all parties, but then also that person be the bridge to your stakeholder / board? Is that under knowledge that you have to worry about?
I think knowing who you're, I think it's part of that, because if I need to reach out to my stakeholders and my board, if I'm making a pitch and I'm, third tier down on one silo, but I'm pitching to the board of a different silo, where am I getting that information?
Yeah.
I am here on my phone, so I can't.
Yeah. Or at least, someone on top, like how do you go up the chain, a bridge to up the chain?
I don't want a bridge. I like the idea that this is not a person per se, but it's like a library that allows you to self-consume the information that you need in order to do your job correctly without having to go up the bridge.
Is it maybe more like a certification then, that anyone, you know who's aware of these aspects, because whether the job is CTO / KM or user experience designer level 1 / KM, there's certain they've shown an expertise or competency in these types of things, as opposed to just being one person.
Like a librarian at every level almost, that connects you with
I think
people.
you're talking about skill per person, building a skill in every person.
Right.
Absolutely. He's getting more to the way a matrix organization will be connected, is that everybody has an expectation of what knowledge management is and what their role is. So everybody's an awareness, there's a mindset in the organization. Well, the problem with having just people or one person per section, now you've created a linchpin. Now you've created a linchpin situation.
This is not a personal thing. You have a function for each.
But if you're saying if it's a culture, if it's built into everybody's job description, everybody's.
And that's why this is the only place you'll see this metric, is where I combine IT, KM, and HR. Because that's where I see the magic happening that's not yet been done. Because, just like you were getting to, it should be an expectation on day one of guy driving truck to, anywhere in the chain, that they know what their role is, or are aware of knowledge and its asset as an organizational asset. So having an individual that's that, or having one that's in charge of a section, the Army has tried doing that, where they have one person that's the knowledge management officer for a battalion of soldiers. And it's like, that's kind of not the best way to deploy it, because then, we'll just go, the knowledge manager guy will figure it out.
I don't think this is extensible, but my brain wants, like what I want when I enter an organization, and I'm not saying this is what we want here. I want a wiki for everything I do in life. I want something where my users have collaborated to give me what they know, so that nobody has to do something twice without it being trainable to somebody else, without intervention by humans. I want to read a wiki on every situation I go into. I don't think that's the answer, but I want a human-centered wiki, one that is more consumable than having to search alphabetically for a term you might not know.
Generated by the process somehow.
So keep in mind, KM is in charge, is looking at the organization through the lens of people, process, and technology. Every time. Those are the three layers, or the three bullseyes going through an analysis of organization and seeing where the gaps are.
Because I'm thinking for the HR side, it's about not only you're promoting him, it's also hiring the right people who got this KM awareness. So I believe the job description that you need to address this KM in your job description. So people, when they try to apply a job, when they write their cover letter, they realize, okay, this is one of not even task, but like a nature that I need to learn in my, job responsibility.
So basically, we would say that that's built into your hiring, is that you.
Yeah. I was with the job description.
Got about 18 more minutes of getting your hands dirty before you start building your.
The other thing about that is that if you structure the relationships between the employees in such a way that they're either in competition or siloed, then the communication's not going to happen. But if you structure it in such a way that teamwork is built into the process, you have to be forced to communicate.
Bingo.
This is the info behavior, share behavior change.
Right.
So isn't that Toyota? Is that what Kaizen?
Xerox?
Oh, you Kaizen?
Yeah.
Kanban? Kanban,
No,
Kanban?
I think Kaizen turned into Kanban.
Should we work on this slide?
Sorry. I forget how tall I am, so.
Oh my God.
Oh, thank you.
So my next thought was, if these are the three sort of buckets, so we've sort of identified kind of where those things lie now, right? And I think everything basically around people, process, or technology falls under either HR or the CTO. So my thought was, maybe if we could take inventory of those things that those two would technically be responsible for in the way we were thinking about it, that might then identify the things that would then really belong under this banner.
I'm gonna repeat back what you said.
Okay.
So we're gonna take
No, I'm gonna need you to say it before I understand it.
So, all right, so, people, process, or technology, right? So we have people hiring, interviewing, all this, right?
I'm sorry, what are our line of operation here?
They were
So,
the radio and.
Okay, so we're still stick to that.
this is sort of my thought. So we know that there's a big people piece right now that was under the HR umbrella. And maybe we can start to theme them, all the things we've already documented around then these KM pieces. And that would sort of leave then what's left for HR and the CTO to truly own. And then what we would be expecting then KM to actually take on.
Mhm.
Makes sense?
I'm putting on my poker.
Right, so like process and technology. So we know that there's clearly a CTO piece of technology, but there's things that clearly the CTO would just sort of own that doesn't necessarily fall into this people process aspect. I don't think a KM necessarily would be too interested in making sure everybody is using secure coding standards for or following accessibility guidelines. But they may be really interested in that intranet. They may be really interested in the email piece. And so being able to move those from the CTO's responsibility over to the KM's responsibility and putting that under the technology bucket
At least
is
for
my
this,
thought.
for knowledge management.
It's maybe
The internet's gonna be
maybe
owned by
bring
all
a
three.
concisement to your time plan would be, now, take it from the three separates and just house it under the three hub. Instead of parsing it out by IT, KM, or HR, you parsed it out enough to understand where they traditionally fell. Now you're just gonna assemble them under IT, KM, and HR collectively.
Right.
So instead of trying to separate who owns what, just say collectively, this all has to be considered. And then take that towards your lines of operation and how do you execute.
Okay. So we're not necessarily taking things and saying this is only going to be under IT. We are looking at all of it and saying, okay, how does this
Shared
apply to
ownership
radio?
now, because it's shared governance under those three.
Okay.
Yeah, because I mean, in practical terms, HR is going to be involved with the intranet, the IT department is going to be.
They're all going to be touching
They're
the
all gonna
same
be touching
pieces.
the same stuff, yeah.
They're all going to come at it from a different angle, different perspective.
Let's grab one sticky note and see how it plays out in practice.
Yeah, so we're pulling needs, right?
Yeah.
Training. It's training people or is training process?
So what if you design your training to consider all three of the components, HR, IT, and KM, collectively, towards a common goal of training whoever that is, the worker, the onboarder.
Okay, so training could be many different things. It could be onboarding, it could be HR driven, it could be manager driven. It has to be supported by a platform. It could be, new technologies that a certain team has adopted.
So the internet's technology or that process?
Yes. Traditionally, CIO, CTO has been the pipes, the software, the hardware. That's what they own. And all the things go with it, right? But ideally, those are the three buckets that they are in charge of. Hardware, software, and spend on all of that, and the pipes. But when you look at it collectively, if your workers are using the pipes and the software and hardware, then there's an element, think of it as user design, right? Designing user experience as an organization looking at the worker and the learner as being the user. And now instead of independently thinking, well, I'm the IT guy and I'm the HR woman and they never talk, because that's traditionally what I've seen. There's not a lot of crosstalk. And what if you brought those together and make them work together to be able to create this new organizational model? That's where I'm trying to bridge you to. I'm trying to get you to, how do you get there? It's not easy.
Because here's where I'm getting stressed, is like something like hiring, we've stuck under people, but it's people, it is process. If I'm in HR, I want a way that we hire so that I don't get sued later when I hire somebody and somebody says, "Ooh, you didn't hire me because I'm a girl," or "You didn't hire me because I'm a boy." There has to be process. There has to be IT considerations. Especially if we're doing any sort of distance hiring or technology-based interview. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So hiring can't be a people, it has to be all of these things. So you're asking how would IT, knowledge management, and HR work together to create a hiring process? Okay.
Yep, you're pulling it through a whole new needle here.
Yeah.
All those considerations you brought up are still going to be considerations under the HR ownership of their domain specifically. But in the collective of what the leadership now is of IT, HR, KM, they all have a part in that as an organizational structure. So those considerations HR could bring up and say, how is IT going to reinforce these things? How are we going to build a dashboard that monitors each individual to tell me 60 days out when this person needs research, or whatever those HR ashes are, ash points, that IT could get ahead of, and KM could help build the workflow processes between the people and the IT. It's just like a chef, right? Just think of it like that. You're building a new recipe. You haven't baked it yet. You're taking different pieces and putting them in different pots. I know, it's tough. It's tough. It can be done. But all these points that you're getting to are all the thought processes that lead you to, you have to consider all these parts and pieces.
So we're at least thinking about it the right way.
Well, I'm not saying right or wrong, but these are all components that have to go into the hopper to start figuring this out.
Guys, should we just draw this?
She wants to draw something. Give her something to draw. She needs to draw.
Yeah.
All that sugar and cookies, she needs to start.
Okay. Would that be simpler that if we draw something by adding those elements? That'll be a better presentation.
Go for it. See what we think.
So are we still sticking to that?
No, that was unrelated.
But we're sticking to that as our lines of business, right? Those are our those are our lines of business. And I think that's important because that keeps us, that's what we have in terms of our holdings, that's what we have in terms of.
So are we going to keep those? Yeah, let's keep those and by adding these stuff. Each of the line. Okay.
I always had a hard time thinking that it's going to be any different from one to the other, like each of those are going to be the same,
right?
The same sort of.
I think there's a difference
Is there?
between, sorry,
No, go ahead.
between this one has different interests than these two. These two are getting into like very tiny differences between the mediums, but I think there's a big difference in the priorities of this group and the priorities of this group, and the way this group consumes and shares information, and the way that these groups consume and share information.
Well, this keeps you afloat.
That's important. Sometimes.
Maybe that's one way you start to contextualize this. If you go with what you were just saying about what are the drivers of these business units or these lines of operation, and then specify what are they interested in? And how does this cell, ITKM and HR, address those elements that you were just speaking to? What are they interested in? What are their top primary issues?
So the one that we're on the far right, that's like the sales, and the others are kind of more like the mechanism for delivering the sales or for making the sales.
So I'll challenge that. So at this point, so now what are you thinking is the solution set for an enterprise across these lines of operation? Because that tends to be a challenge in most organizations, because once you start jumping silos, then they use this or they use that, or there's nothing that's the common knowledge sharing data platform that is truly enterprise level, that looks at all workflows from an enterprise level. Money is not a constraint.
What if we just make those three things into different portions and see what if each one of these lines takes how many portions? For example, if let's see, the tech is yellow, how much you're going to address each of the section?
Break it out by percentage, you mean? So if you've got task A, IT's got 40% of this, HR's
Yes.
50%.
How's that sound?
At least you start doing an assignment of weight, right?
Distribution, yes,
Per-
for each of these three.
Be interesting.
Okay.
I don't know.
Say
I'm not part of the group.
IT would be the yellow one. Okay, blue, because I think blue means smart. IT is gold. HR is yellow, green.
Well, if the energy die out here,
Not yet.
you got 3:36, so you probably got about another 5 minutes to get something consolidated.
I mean, even the printed media is different from the online media, because that means you requires a lot of IT, info security, everything, and this probably knowledge management. Well, HR is more staff. And another thing that I'm really feeling interesting is how these three elements interact with each other, even under the same section. How they come to influence the function of each other. Because they're not totally isolated.
But I mean, at this point, can we think of them as one unit, working together, or do we need to differentiate?
Oh, this is just the for the portions, like how much is the
I
HR
mean-
to take the portions, like part 100.
Okay, so then like we have like recruiting, interviewing, hiring, that would be HR, right?
Sort of traditionally.
Yeah,
Traditionally.
the distribution of, for example, although we don't have a budget string, but what if we have a budget string, how much money we want to invest for each one of the sections?
So is it just a matter of understanding how the revenue generating streams of the business and then the internal structural pieces sort of align side by side? So how does HR lay across and support each of the people assigned to those pipes?
I'm just kind of pulling them all together. And that might be because coming from a smaller organization, do it anyway.
So just think of a current situation where in an organizational structure, what would the influential matters be of a CTO in this structure? Would be top down, right? For the most part. They drive the organization's
Right.
hardware, software, and pipes. That's what they own. Right?
And these will each have their own requirements, but they'll have to go through the CTO office.
So that, and they're at the top shelf for funding, because they provide all the bones to the organization. So through this exercise, I'm forcing you to go from what you know, trying to get out of that, and thinking of what if you can combine KM, HR, and IT together to start looking at organization. And what's the key word of the workshop today? Ecosystem. If you looked at your organization as an ecosystem and your employees as learners, would that paradigm be enough to shift out of this blocks we've been talking about? Because it becomes more organic when you think about it. At every level, there's going to be the influence of HR, IT, and KM, regardless. But how do you get there? The hiring part you brought up, you talked about the HR piece, the hiring. From what I've seen, usually a department will send some job description they've created or copied off somebody else's job description somewhere else, and so they have change a few things, set it up, and they check it for whatever issues they've got to for compliance or issues, and they farm it out. And it becomes this very devoid thing, and then they go through the process and they go through the interviews, and they may be successful or not. But if they don't know what the analysis is and the results of the organization overall, to all the people they've hired, what's the attrition rate been by that process, how successful it's been to begin with. A lot of organizations don't even know that. They just keep hiring. So maybe they need to fix how they develop those job descriptions on a holistic level, that is people, processes, and technology to begin with. And look at it in an ecosystem and that kind of organic. It's not easy. There'll be a lot of personality, turf, all those things that go with it. So, what do you got over there?
I don't know. I just, something popped into my head, so I drew it. 2100 gigawatts?
So explain, please.
Well, no, I mean, so it's right. So it's just a difference of top down versus like inside out. So if we start with knowledge as the center, and then that would be equal parts HR and CTO. I started at 3, but the reality is it would be 2 with what we've been working with. And then from there, your verticals or your organization structure then sort of flow around.
I love that. Because anyone heard of the golden circle? Whatever is in the center of your golden circle is your primary mission of your organization. So if you use that as your guiding whatever you're doing, what's our golden circle? What is the one thing? And for where I trained in the Intel Center, the golden circle was the learner, the soldier centric. The soldier was the center because we trained soldiers. So regardless, all the political bull and all the funding streams and all the individual ownerships and pride and ego and all that crap that goes with an autocratic, bureaucratic system, they changed the paradigm and said, no matter what, soldiers first. Whatever we're doing, the soldier is in the middle of that circle. So in this paradigm, you're saying the knowledge or the management of the knowledge is we all got to be focused around that because that's what pays the bills. That's what keeps all the grease and all the wheels moving. I like it. It's very cool. Very interesting. And if you're not familiar with the golden circle, check it out. It's a good 4 or 5 minute video on that because it gets the motivation. What's the motivation of the organization? And that builds in satisfaction, employee satisfaction. What do you got cooking over here?
So I guess I started thinking about how one person has a lot to learn and it has to have their hands. Like over there, I look at that and I think, oh, I am not going to get the answers I need about something else. And so I started trying to sketch out what person.
Yeah, I get it.
Really nice.
Yeah.
But what person needs to access access. So like if I'm, as a worker, I need to access new information about softwares and tools, skills, tasks, areas of work. So let's say I've been working in building and I need to go learn something about claims, for instance.
Yep.
I need to know people when they join me. Who are they? Are they a VP? Do I need to talk to them differently? Or are they, IT? What is their concern? Whenever I start a new project, I interview the person to find out what they actually care about.
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
Otherwise,
That matters.
It matters.
It does matter.
And so that's my team.
Yep.
Then my department head, I expect them to give me best practices. And if they don't, I think they've dropped the job, even if that's not their job, but that's what I expect from them. I expect to know processes and tools. For my line of business, I want to know what the goals and the threats are. So what's changing that might shake down to me? I need to have access to that so that I don't want it every day, but I do need to be aware of it. And then from the CEO, I want to know what the driving force is. What am I doing here?
Why are we here?
In the end, what am I doing?
Yeah.
But all of these things, they do funnel down like a waterfall, but I'm going to need to access them, and I'm not necessarily going to need to access them on somebody else's timeline, or I'm not going to talk to the CEO to find this out. And I don't necessarily want it filtered down this way. But those are the things.
I like that.
So there's different kinds of knowledge.
Yeah.
Well, and you're building a model that wouldn't be a normal taxonomy to a taxonomist of an organization's data, right? So this is what I've always driven into knowledge management students is build whatever you're building to be findable at least 3 different ways, because there's visual learners, there's auditory, there's different ways people consume content. So if you can build a better widget and design it to be a smarter design, therefore it can be found 3 different ways, then this would be an easy way to create a graphical interface where you can make everything clickable and findable. And it's great. The only thing that I would add to this is where's your window to the external? This is all internal. So where would be a good interface, and who would that be? Maybe it's somebody in your team that's constantly sucking information from everywhere and is feeding, or maybe it should be part of the organization.
I was going to say, I generally expect that kind of thing to come from one of these 2 things, and a little bit of the threats and goals. That's kind of what I hear from the outside, but I also hear it on a more relative to me scale from my department. They're going to talk about, we hear about like changes in the industry.
Right.
They're going to say,
be aware of those.
Changes to
they feed you stuff.
Yeah, changes to process.
So you said it at least 2 or 3 times. You expect it from here. So that tells me there is no codified or policy or regimented way anything's done. Because your expectation doesn't mean it happens.
That's true.
How big of a weak link is that?
Well, it does leave sometimes, because I've been there sometimes.
All right. So what are we going to go with our final? Not everybody's pitched in, which is fine, but anyone want to add to either one of these? I like that the cascading. I always talk about knowledge being upstream or downstream, and where the effect is. The term in data management is data lake. That's the latest. And to me, that's just such a sedentary concept. It's just getting bigger. It's like damming up the river. It's like, it doesn't work. It's got to be moving to be a whole lot of value, or at least accessible. So I like the idea of showing it as a flow. I always like building workflow charts. This gets to the bullseye. What is the whole, and that goes right back to the mission, right? What is the core mission of why we're here? And how do we all support it? And that would fit into a holacracy model. That idea is that everything is built. If you look at an org chart, holacracy, it looks like, if you've ever seen fish eggs floating in the water, it's just like all these little circles. Their org chart looks like an organic molecule. There is no, line and block, who's on top. It's just all circles, interrelated over orientation of work.
I'm sorry.
No, I'm fishing.
Well, I think in all these models that we're trying to create, we do the knowledge creation and we do knowledge flow. But since we don't talk much about knowledge retrieval, and that's the purpose why we do knowledge.
Yeah, no sense keeping it if nobody's gonna go get it. So that's,
Are we
that's,
missing anything?
in that,
What would be the most efficient department, tool, or human to
it
do
is
this?
such a polluted answer. I mean, it all depends. That's like when I showed you the different meanings of knowledge management. Because there's no one, it's not information management equals X, knowledge management equals X, because it's mission and organization organic. So as with the tools, because knowledge in one organization is not going to be knowledge in another organization. It's whatever the value is extracted from whatever they're working with. So the extraction has got to be built into it. I work for a lessons learned organization for the U.S. Army, military intelligence realm, and they were super great at the Hoover part. Suck it up, just suck up all the data. Get all the data, yep, we got it. We got terabyte after terabyte after terabyte, yep. Now what? It wasn't organized, it was a data dump. It was just PowerPoint, Word, Excel, just all this crap. No naming conventions. It was like, good luck. Nobody gave that any thought. My mission was to get in there and build a taxonomy to at least make something findable, because at that point it was useless. Money spent out the door. But that's where I find the KM role fits in, is I can see these rubs, these issues. It's like, why am I the only one getting upset about this? This is ridiculous. We're going to do this again next year because nobody's tracking what we're doing now. Or the position will change, or the contract will roll out, new people will come in. That's always an issue.
So what I find is, I think of it as like trying to rebuild the ship while I'm in the middle of the ocean, trying to sail it.
Yeah.
Is that I'm constantly doing two things. I'm trying to do my job, but I'm trying to find a better way to do my job in the future and build
a better mousetrap, right? Yeah.
You know, like.
Yep. It's what I've seen in the courses and the presentations I've given. It's like I'll see light bulbs. It'll be like a small percentage, 10% of the room will be like, so it's still not trackable by, you've got to have that vision and passion to see what's not there. And that's really a lot of this.
Yeah,
because
you know what you don't know, but then also you have to drive it toward that tipping point where it gels.
Or at least challenge what the norm is now. Why are we doing it like this? Why? Well, that's just the way we voted.
Yeah, and that's what I'm doing, but it's like you push forward and you back off. So once you've seeded it in people's minds, they're thinking about it, it's brewing, you can't see it.
Yeah.
And then when the opportunity comes, you bring it forward
slow
again.
boil.
Or in the background, you're building something on another part of the server that you can kind of bring it over at some point.
Yeah, one of the easy, that's the other thing, is that it seems like it's easy for me to see these divots. It's like, why are you doing it like this? So in this organization in the Army, soldiers are tracked by all their private information, social, birth date, all that stuff. That's the data points that everybody tracks everybody. So all your spreadsheets have all this data in them. But not everybody in the organization needs to know all this extra columns of information. So I said, well, so how many times have you seen this? Which version of the Excel did you get? Are you in version 6? What's the date of that one? Is that the most current? I think this is the most current. No, you've got the most current. Why? Because it's all freaking email hell. It's ridiculous, right? Yeah. I said, you've got SharePoint. I can publish the HR element of that organization, gets all that data, but they can structure it to where each sub-unit could have 3 columns, what they need. They can print it and they can publish. Therefore, no more emails, no more copies of Excels, and no more misalignment, because they would be the source and publish the actuals, and then retraining and re-educating all the organization to not go to email, but actually go to this web link, which is a published page, which is all current live data, always. Yeah, or a wiki. Yeah. There's a lot of different tools. It all depends on the organization and what their mode of operation is.
Because I mean, if it's not for retrieval, then what's the point of we having a knowledge management system?
Yep, and that's that people and processes. How do they access? What's the user interface and what's the purpose?
Maybe
But if KM's in the center, it'll always be there. Because there's nothing worse than spending time and resources on collection to do nothing. And then it gets a management issue at that point. Hey, this drive's full. What are we doing all this stuff?
But it just seems like often this is this kind of thing over here that you just grab it when you can, when you got a few spare minutes.
I mean, instead of the solid, obviously KM has this glittering powder. Glittering powder, flowing within this organization.
I think I give you a good comparison. So every soldier that's in the Army gets trained on first aid. Why? Because they're going to be a medic? No. Because everybody should know first aid. Because you save lives if you know first aid. If you know how to stop and apply pressure, you're going to help somebody. If everybody's got a same basic element of how you communicate, what's our policy, I know the tools that we're supposed to use, and you train and you practice that, then your organization will just naturally start to adopt knowledge management practices because it'll become aware. And it'll help your organization. You have not added any 2 cents at all.
Yeah, my poker face.
Play your hand. Nothing? You got nothing?
I got
You're just
soaking it in. Soaking it in.
This is all new, so.
welcome to the future.
You can have my.
I think we're about done for time. Is there anything anyone wants to comment on, feedback from me?
Do you have any resources online? Do you do any online teaching or any videos or anything like that?
I have many things. So I would suggest going to connect with us on Facebook or my website.
Are
I live in the area. Yeah, we're taking a CAM class that I'm teaching here at camp. And I'm available to go to organizations. Like I said, we're a fee-based nonprofit. We can earn a certain amount by fee, or ideally we're looking for grants or donations.
Where are you located?
In the big city of Talmadge. 7 miles up south. And we're an Arizona corporation because I started this back when I was still a contractor. So we're a 501c3 with the first in the nation to be a knowledge management charity. So I think it's important. My intent is to end up being the Johnny Appleseed of the knowledge ecosystem. That's what I want to do. Right?
So in like 60 years, they'll be like you on someone's slide deck.
I
want to be a Johnny Appleseed.
You're like, oh, I remember that guy. You have long hair. But yeah, that's what I saw. So organizations, British Petroleum, Deloitte, Ernst & Young, a lot of these big, deep pocket organizations have been doing knowledge management. They know it. They've been doing it. But, and that's what I was doing it for the Army. I was at a frustration level where I was like, I need to do something else. So I thought, what if I created a knowledge management nonprofit to help nonprofits do knowledge management? That way I can raise society, to help society as best I can by helping those that are interfaced and helping those that need it. Everybody wins. And I'm not a consultant, so if I can get grant money, we can co-apply as another nonprofit, we can partner and apply for grant money. Everybody wins. That's the intent. Any questions other than that? Thank you very much. It's been fun. Can I take a group photo? Mind? Sure. I don't think I can do a selfie with this big group.
Best practice. I just need to see it.
What is it that you do? What's your background?
I'm a librarian, so, and I just got a postmaster's in emerging technologies and digital libraries. So it's all library related. I got hooked into this 3 years ago, so user experience and
Let me grab some
You know, Karen McDonald? Karen McNulty.
Yeah, do I know her personally?
No. Right, because I'm currently working with her, a entrepreneur project here.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. She's in a business librarian in her library. And I think she conducted a research among entrepreneurs in northeast Ohio.
Sure, yeah, he's probably wants to take a picture.
And then put that together, but if you just throw concepts at me.
Okay, we got somebody.
Right.
We can stand here with a slide in the background.
Right.
You want that?
Yeah. All people can't stand like that.
Give the saw person position.
Do you want the table in the foreground?
Sure, whatever you can squeeze in there.
All right, so there's the long shot, and then I'll try to like zoom in and do so you can actually make out your faces. There you go.
So let me grab one for the,
For the album. For the yearbook.
right.
Ready to give us rock covered pose.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for playing. It's been fun.
Thank you.
Oh,
I know, the ever coveted.
Thank you.
The ever coveted speaker gift.